What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jerichoholic8704, here to give you another installment in the ECW review series. We have episode 3 of the WWE ECW, and the show opened up, unlike a lot of other shows I've seen from WWE. Sabu was coming to the ring for his match. There wasn't any opening pyro, there wasn't a recap of the previous week or the pay-per-view. There wasn't anything like that. There wasn't even Joey Styles saying, like, "This is WWE ECW, welcome, I'm Joey Styles," yada yada yada. Sabu was on his way to the ring. Justin Roberts was giving the introduction, and Joey Styles just said, "We're here in Roanoke, Virginia, and we have our opening match here, Sabu versus Roadkill." Sabu starts off hot, and, he's beating up Roadkill, and then he sets up a chair in the middle of the ring. He, unfolds it and sets it up to do his moonsault off the top of the chair. However, Roadkill trips him up, and he beats on him for a bit. Roadkill eventually slips out of the ring and tries to get a table, and then Sabu goes for this, I guess a top rope plancha or whatever. He does the springboard off the ropes. Or he slingshots himself across the ropes, I should say. And I don't even know if he had any forward momentum, because Sabu hardly cleared these ropes, and he just kind of slumped over these ropes, and he barely touched Roadkill. Roadkill again tried to catch him, but he could only do so much because Sabu didn't even jump that far. Sabu lands right on his fucking head. He literally it's almost like he dove into a pool. That's what it looked like. So that was just a mess. So Roadkill beats up on Sabu. Now that Sabu has basically taken himself out of the match, he throws him back into the ring. He sets up the table. He basically lays Sabu on the table, and then he goes to the top rope. Roadkill, on the other hand, and remember, Roadkill, for those of you who don't know, his gimmick was that he was from the Amish country in Pennsylvania, and he was just this big old bald dude in, just like a button down and a tie. He looked like any generic Joe Blow at any office job. However, Sabu is set up at one end of the ring on this table, and Roadkill, goes up to the top rope, literally on the other side of the ring. What he was planning to do, I have zero idea. There's no way this man could have jumped that far. I saw the way he moved in the ring. There is no possible way he could have jumped from coast to coast to get Sabu. So clearly, it was just a way for Sabu to roll off the table, and he did one of his patented, chair throws. He threw this chair. I'm assuming he was aiming for Roadkill's gut. Now, granted, there is a lot of target space if you're aiming for Roadkill's gut. However, one of the legs of the chair just hit him right in the balls. That had to have sucked more than anything on this show. And trust me, a lot of things on this show were very questionable. So Roadkill's kind of selling his balls, and he leans on the table, and then Sabu hits a top rope leg drop with the chairs underneath him. Sabu actually took a nasty bump in this, because when the table broke, some of this, sometimes the tables, they don't just break in half. Certain edges poke out and everything. That's how RVD lost, his eyelid, I think. He went for a frog splash in the original ECW, not in this show, but in the original ECW, I think he was going for a frog splash on a table, I should say. And when the table broke, certain, I guess you could say, certain edges, it wasn't a clean break, and certain edges kind of created a proverbial spike, and they just kind of jammed him up in the air, and it grazed across his eye, and his eyelid popped off. Something similar happened to Sabu here. His back got completely torn up because one of the edges of the table just went right into the air, and it just scraped him all across the back, and it was brutal. But you'd think after that sick bump, and it got the "oh my god," call from Joey Styles, you'd think that would be the end of the match. But Sabu puts him in the camel clutch, and then of course Roadkill doesn't tap out, and then he just slams him with the chair one more time, and then basically Sabu sits on the chair and then puts in the camel clutch, which causes Roadkill to submit. Very questionable finish. I don't know why they just didn't do the leg drop as the finish, but it only lasted another 30 seconds, so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So then we had a preview for the main event. They showed the match graphic for Rob Van Dam versus Kurt Angle. And this was really weird because they showed the graphic and everything. And, it's very simple. You just say, here on ECW, our main event tonight will be RVD versus Kurt Angle. That's all you got to say. But Joey Styles was like, and the stakes are really, really high tonight. And Taz, there was just an awkward silence. And then Taz was like, yeah, Joey, the stakes are really high tonight. Why don't you tell him? And then Joey Styles was like, the stakes are really high tonight in the main event. So I don't know if they had a spoiler or if they weren't supposed to say something. I don't know what was going on, but both of those guys were struggling. So we go to commercial, and then we come back, and then Kevin Thorne makes another funny face into the camera. And then we come back with Tommy Dreamer in the ring. And Dreamer's like, hey, Big Show, I respect you for beating the shit out of me last night, and I have to say thank you. Now can I please have another ass whooping? And then Big Show just comes to the ring, gets in the ring, and beats the hell out of Tommy Dreamer. It was the same thing from last week. This is a completely pointless segment. There was nothing original, nothing new. He literally did the same moves, nothing new. So then we go backstage, and Kelly and Mike Knox are, conversing about this and that. Meanwhile, Kelly just pulls off her top and shows Mike her boobs and everything. And Mike Knox is like, ooh, I really like this, but I really don't like it when you show other people your breasts. Now, may you please come to the ring with me. Now, that's not how he said it, but that's basically the generic verbiage of what he was trying to communicate to her. So he asked her that question, and then Kelly's like, I'd love to. Like, it just, with literally zero charisma. And then we had one of the most awkward, just weirdest interviews ever. It was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was just, he was standing, it was like an inset promo, and he was standing in front of the camera like he was about to take a mugshot. It's just this blank stare, this extremely stone-faced man, and he's like, hello, my name is Kurt Angle. I face Rob Van Dam tonight in the main event. And if I go on to beat him, I will be inserted into the WWE Championship match at Saturday night's main event. But you already knew that. And I was like, actually, I didn't know that. Now, granted, maybe they made an announcement at Vengeance or something, but I doubt it. I think Joey Styles and Taz were supposed to say something about, Angle getting the title shot at Saturday night's main event in that little preview for the main event, but they never did. So this was just, I don't know, this was just really, really weird. So all of a sudden, he's very robotic. And then he just breaks down and he was like, April 2nd was the worst day of my life. And Kurt Angle's just doing this very forced, it sounded so forced. It didn't even sound genuine at all. He sounded like a complete robot. And the thing is, watching that Kurt Angle 24 documentary and knowing what was going on with Kurt Angle at the time, you can tell there's something not right with him. And this was Exhibit A. And while we're at it, just to finish everything up, he basically just says, ever since he lost the title at WrestleMania, he's been a failure, and he will do everything he can to get the title back. That's basically the message of his promo. But the thing about Kurt Angle, in 2006 at least, is I was never really a fan of the super, super, super intense Kurt Angle. Again, I love the comedic Kurt Angle. That's probably my favorite incarnation of him. But I also really, really enjoy, the 02 to 05 heel run where he was serious. Like, he definitely was a very serious wrestler, and you took him he was a very legitimate competitor. And it wasn't that he had a comedic side to him, but he felt more like a genuine guy. The thing about it is, I never enjoyed it. I mean, I think a lot of it is about, like, his humanity. Like, I know humanity might seem like a very philosophical and very deep word when talking about a wrestling character, but I mean, hear me out here. So, like, Kurt Angle still felt like a person with, like, natural motivations. Like, I think back to, like, that feud with Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania 20. He felt like a person with genuine motivations. And sure, he did have a genuine motivation to want to beat Rob Van Dam. He felt like a failure because he lost the World Heavyweight Championship, and he was going to regain that championship. The sooner he could get it, the sooner he wouldn't feel like a failure anymore. I get that, but it's just, when you have this promo, and you're standing there like a fucking robot, like, hello, I am Kurt Angle. Like, I really can't trust anything you're saying. I really can't believe anything you're saying. And sure, he did get more emotional when he was starting to talk about, his family and all of his accolades and how horrible he feels about losing the title. He did show emotion, but it's still, like, to compare it to something, it's like in an Edgar Allan Poe story where you have, like, that unreliable narrator. Like the narrator of The Telltale Heart? He's showing you a lot of emotion, but deep down, this dude's fucking insane. I can't trust anything he says. That's how I felt with Kurt Angle. Now, again, I know I might be looking, like, way too deep into this for a wrestling show, and I know this is, I got extremely off topic because I'm starting to talk about the fucking Telltale Heart. And for those of you who haven't read The Telltale Heart or any Edgar Allan Poe story, please read. Edgar Allan Poe is one of the best authors, literally, of all time. My favorite Edgar Allan Poe story, obviously, is Cast of Amontillado, but that is a different fucking subject for a different day. We're getting back to ECW. Let's continue on, because I'm really getting off topic here. So then we had Mike Knox versus Danny Doring. So they lock up for a bit, and basically it's almost like a Mark Marrow kind of Sunny dynamic. Everyone really cares about Kelly, and to be fair, like, Mike Knox looked like just any Joe Blow. Like, I know I said the same thing about Roadkill, but double for Mike Knox. It was just a tall guy, and eventually, a couple of years down the road, Mike Knox would grow his hair out longer, and he'd grow out that really, really huge beard, and his chest hair would be bushier. That gave him some sort of, defining look, and set him apart from the rest of the guys, but this dude just looked like any other dude. He had his hair slicked back, he had just, like, a thick goatee, just built, maybe like 6'3", 250, just, your average semi-big dude. You know what I mean? And Danny Doring is just, in his tights, he's just doing his thing. They're having a basic, just, the idiot-proof basic wrestling match. And again, everyone's focused on Kelly Kelly. So at one point, a wrestling fan calls her over. It was obviously a plan, obviously. So they call her over, and Kelly Kelly does like a little striptease for him, and then she asks him to unhook his bra, and he goes for it. And then Mike Knox just gets out of the ring and was like, "Fuck you," and just pushes the fan. And he comes back into the ring. Danny Doring tries to come back, but he gets a sit-out spinebuster and then a sister Abigail. For the loss, Mike Knox defeats Danny Doring in his in-ring debut. So afterwards, Kelly's on her like little expose podium, and like, "All right, coming back from commercial, we have Kelly's expose. Stay tuned." So Kelly Kelly's doing her expose, and I know every week I have something horrible to say about Kelly Kelly, and this I don't know if this is necessarily her fault, because I'm sure there is some person in like a wardrobe department that dresses Kelly Kelly for every show. I don't think she chooses what she wears. That being said, Kelly's expose, as you all know, is a striptease on a live network television show, which again sounds ridiculous. Why would someone strip on network television when you can't show anything? Again, I've been over this several times and I still hate it. However, here's the thing. These segments, they always last a long time. And I say long time, I mean that in like wrestling minutes. A long time for a wrestling segment is 5 minutes. I wouldn't say this lasted 5 minutes. This probably lasted maybe 3.5 minutes. Maybe even a little shorter than that. My point is, all Kelly Kelly was wearing was her bra, her panties, and this oversized like blouse, I guess is the word I'd be looking for. I mean, I guess it's just like an oversized t-shirt or a blouse or whatever. That's all she had on. So they had Kelly Kelly go out and dance and do the striptease with only 3 articles of clothing on, one of which she is allowed to take off on national television, 2 of which she is not allowed to take off on national television. How the fuck is she supposed to get... She just had to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Now, granted, I'm sure a lot of the people in the arena and a lot of people watching at home aren't going to complain about that. However, my philosophy is, if you're going to do this for 3 minutes, at least... you could at least create some sort of suspense or some sort of escalation. It was the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And again, I've ranted and raved about how much I hate these expose segments because they're just so fucking stupid. And eventually, Mike Knox, the only redeeming thing was Mike Knox threw a towel and she threw it back at him. That was the only sort of conflict of interest we've seen between these two characters on this wrestling show. Mike Knox eventually just comes up and covers her up, and then people boo him. Then we had the greatest moment in the history of WWE ECW. I don't know why they continued doing episodes of this. We had Big Dick Johnson, the best wrestler in the history of the planet. He comes out and he's in like his little tracksuit and everything, and he has his little like oil bottle, and he's spraying everyone and he's dancing around. And then Sandman's music hits. And Big Dick Johnson, he's like, oh shit, like he is freaking out. And here's the thing. Every like goober, like the Zombie, and then we had Macho Libre, now Big Dick Johnson, they've all come to the ring, and then when Sandman's music hits, everyone's like, oh fuck, like he's coming to get me. Here's the thing, Sandman comes through the crowd, and he comes in at a snail's pace because Sandman can only move so fast. He has to stop to drink a beer. He'll have ample time to get out of the ring, but instead they just stand there like, oh. So Sandman gets in the ring, and he is just laughing at this goofball. Big Dick Johnson realizes like, oh, he's not here to kill me. Alright, so let's just start dancing. He starts dancing, the music starts playing, Big Dick Johnson's music starts playing, they cut Sandman's music off. He's dancing around, and then Sandman's just like, what the fuck is going on? Sandman just chugs his beer. He has just a mouthful of beer. Big Dick Johnson then proceeds to grab Sabu's cane, and he starts just jerking it off. He's jacking, the strokes are fast and furious, and in rhythm with Big Dick Johnson's strokes on Sandman's cane, Sandman spits out beer. This was the lewdest, this was the most idiotic, this was just the overall craziest thing I've ever seen on ECW, I should say WWE ECW. The original ECW had a lot more crazy shit than this. I don't know what they were thinking. This was so stupid. But then again, because it was so stupid, I laughed. So, between all the Sandman beating the shit out of Goober segments, this was obviously the best one. And then we had a backstage segment with Heyman and Van Dam. Heyman tells Rob that if he has a triple threat match at Saturday night's main event, he has a 1 1/3 chance of walking away with the title. And then Heyman says, but if Kurt Angle wins tonight and it becomes a fatal four-way, your odds of winning are immeasurable. I'm like, really? I'll do the math for you. He has a 1 in 4 chance of winning. There you go. So during this segment, the camera pans out and it cuts to the crowd where Edge and Lita have made their way into the ring. They kick out 2 jabronis in the front row and sit in their seats. Taz comes in and he interviews Edge, and what was great about this is Edge is like 6'4", and Taz, of course, is like 3'2". And Taz is interviewing him, and he holds the mic out, and Taz really doesn't hold it up too high. And Edge has to grab the microphone and bring it up to his mouth, and eventually Edge just grabs the microphone out of his hands and makes fun of Taz's height, and that was that. So then we had our main event, Rob Van Dam versus Kurt Angle. This was a very good match overall. I really enjoyed this thing. It started off a lot of offense from Kurt Angle. They both started off kind of mat wrestling, and during the mat wrestling segment, a lot of kids, you could tell because it was just the high-pitched voices, they were all chanting, "We want Cena." And the other members of the crowd, the ones not with high-pitched voices, they started chanting something back at these kids. I couldn't decipher what it was because Joey Styles and Taz, they just kept talking and talking and talking. They knew we need to silence these "Let's Go Cena" chants, and they were talking over all of them, making sure no fan at home could listen to the crowd. RVD starts a comeback. He hits Angle with a single leg dropkick and then goes for a top rope move, and then Angle gets up and dumps Rob Van Dam off the top rope into the barricade wall, heading into the commercial break. Back from commercial break, Kurt Angle has a headlock on RVD. He's working him over for a bit. He gets a little bit more offense in. RVD goes for a kick, and Angle counters it into a high cradle suplex. That was a very cool spot. Angle sets in the ankle lock, and RVD rolls through and then hits a super kick for a near fall. RVD goes for a single leg drop kick, but Angle counters it into the ankle lock. RVD is trying to fight for the ropes, and he gives one big giant lunge to the rope, and this somehow propels Kurt Angle forward. I don't know how that happens, but Angle gets in the ring, and RVD hits a slingshot leg drop for a near fall. Van Dam goes for the rolling thunder, but Angle reverses it into an ankle lock, which is a very cool moment. Van Dam kicks Angle to knock him down, and then hits a split-legged moonsault for the near fall. Van Dam goes for a frog splash, but Angle jumps up and hits the top rope belly to belly for another near fall. So the crowd has just gone apeshit at this point. There were so many near falls in this match. Angle goes for the Angle slam, but he gets DDT'd instead, and then RVD runs up to the top rope, hits a 5-star frog splash, and he is declared the winner. So this is a very good match, very enjoyable main event. Definitely the best match of all the first 3 ECW shows. Now, granted, there wasn't much competition. Even though last week's main event was pretty good, this one was also very good, and I enjoyed it exponentially. So after the match, RVD is celebrating with his championship, and Edge pretends to walk away, and then RVD foolishly turns his back on Edge, and then Edge comes back and spears him out of his boots. Overall, this is probably the best of the first 3 episodes of ECW. Definitely had some great stuff, and definitely had some horrible stuff, and some stuff that was so horrible, it was great. So that is it for me. My name is Jericho Holiday 704, and I will see all of you guys later.